Welcome to this tutorial. I will cover up how you could get started with ZBrush. So in ZBrush, we consist of two modes. The first one is 2.5D mode, and the second one, in which you will sculpt, is 3D mode. So in this video, we're going to cover up how to get started with ZBrush. So as you can see, we have our canvas right here. So if you press Tab, you can close the extra options you're seeing here, these docked panels. And by pressing Tab again, they could reappear. So whether with the left click or the right click or the stroke of your Wacom tablet, you can just do a stroke, and by default it will draw these pixels. So Control N is used for clearing your canvas. It's going to clear it as new, but anything you did so far, it would be lost. So these are alpha brushes. They give a shape to your brush. You could pick any of these, but we're just going to pick Alpha 01. So as I pick Alpha 01, you can see that our alpha from a default pixel square, which was if I turn it off, as you can see, if I just do a click, whether with the left or the right click, since this is the 2.5D mode, you will sculpt with both. But if you just do a simple right click, even in 3D mode, you will get the shortcut of all of these, or alternatively, you can click space. If you press space bar, you would be able to see this. Like instead of going all the way here, just keep your canvas right here, your brush on the canvas, and you could just choose the color panel, everything, switching color, changing material, all of these as in a shortcut. So I'm going to press Control N again to clear the canvas. Now, the first thing we're going to discuss is the intensity slider. So if you press U, you would be able to just, it's a shortcut key actually, anywhere you are, you could adjust the intensity. The higher the intensity, Control N, we're just switch back to Alpha 01. So the higher the intensity, the stronger the sculpt, as you can see here. And similarly, if I take it even higher, you're seeing it's like even, well, it's more of a denser sculpt. And if I take it down, you guys can see it's a bit of a lighter sculpt, but if I keep repeatedly sculpting on a single area, it also becomes denser. But other than that, the boundary is softer. So I'm gonna hit Control N. Now I accidentally cleared my canvas even when I didn't want it to. Control Z, it will redo any action you did. So if we switch to ZSub, you're going to basically subtract it or carve inside, but onto a diluter or a lighter, well, with a lighter intense sculpt, it would just vanish like this. But what you're actually doing is, since it's a lot denser here, we're pushing that surface in, and if you push it a lot, it becomes clear like that. So it's called 2.5D mode because, as you can see, it's 2D, but it has some fake depth with it. So I'm going to hit Control N to clear it now. The alternate key is if I'm working with a default, like I'm just going to perform this little sculpt right here. Instead of switching the buttons over and over again to Z add and Z sub, I can just hold down the Alt key and I can carve the surface in like this. So I'm going to do Control N's a lot because this is a beginner tutorial. I'm going to show you how you can move around and all and work with the brushes. So if you guys just need to keep a single sculpt, you can work with that. Next thing we're going to discuss is focal shift. What is your focal shift? Basically, by default, you have a neutral focal shift, meaning the brush you have is going to remain the way it is. If we turn our focal shift to a negative value, it means the surface that we are going to draw it would be a lot harder, like our intensity was 12. So I'm just going to set it back to 0. This is the regular sculpt, which has the alpha applied to it accordingly. So if I just turn it to a negative value, something around -40 or, well, -43, you guys can see the shape is a bit more harder. But if I actually take it up a lot, around -74, you guys can see that you can actually see the hard edges. What we are doing is this alpha is actually a combination of the dots. And if you actually look at the alpha now, it looks a lot darker. So if I just switch back to 0, like this, you can type in the value, like just click and type in from the keyboard when it's highlighted red, and then press enter. Or the shortcut key is O, and just slide it up and down. Now you see our alpha brush will change in real time. Keep looking at the alpha icon. As soon as I let go, you see it has become a lot darker, which means that it's more obvious we are dragging dots, like we are dragging dots of this alpha. Similarly, if I change it to this swirly pattern alpha 19, you can see it's the same thing. They're being dragged. Like you can actually see dots of them. Like they're being dragged together like dots. I'm going to hit Control N. So once that is done, similarly, if I take my focal shift higher, you can see it becomes a lot softer. So if I go back here, you can see that the edges are a lot softer. Now, another thing before we continue, I want to discuss about the alpha brush. So what the alpha brush is, as you can see, uh, the pure white areas, they're gonna remain white as the way it is. And these little lighter areas are completely black. They won't sculpt anything. For example, if I just do this little sculpt like this, you can see its boundary is a lot softer. Now, to move around, if we press anti-aliased half size, it's going to shrink your canvas like this so you can see the entire display. Actual size resets it to the actual size. If you hold your left click on the zoom button and move it up, it's going to zoom out and you can zoom in, meaning if I do this little sculpt here, like I draw these pixels, and if I zoom out, it's just going to appear right there, meaning you can do a really detailed sculpt up close, but up close you can see the pixels to the pixels. So anyways, I'm going to zoom out again. To move around as you're working zoomed in, hold your left click on it or your right click, not light. You can just move it around like this. And if I press actual again, it's just going to reset it to its actual size. So another thing, I'm just going to do this random sculpt here. And as you guys can see, we have a material as well as a color. So a material is something that we can do. As you can see, we have so many materials. For example, if I pick droplet material up, you guys can see now instead of painting that red, I'm drawing in this. You guys can see we have this 3D droplet-like material, and I can sculpt it even on top, but that layer remains on the bottom. We will discuss it in a bit. And by default, if you have the white color selected, it's going to just paint that. Like if I pick this reflect 2, it's going to just pick its default color, which is white. Well, not white. Like this white color chosen here is going to pick that default color it has, like the skin shade now. You see the skin shade has that type of color, so I'm doing that. Similarly, if I take the focal shift to harder, it's going to do it a much harder surface like this. You can create terrains or height maps too. So if I change the color to something red, instead of that, I'm going to actually do a skin shade red like this. So now I just needed to do this. Go here to change your brush to the smudge brush. Again, increasing the size of the brush, you can adjust how big or small you need. Like I'm making it smaller compared to before. And the smudge brush is just like pushing it all together and mixing it, as you can see. Like it's just being mixed like one huge thing. Now I needed you guys to do something. I needed to mess around with this and sculpt a bit with the alpha brushes as well as using the smudge brush. And I needed to paint 3 different colors here and smudge them like this. Create your own pattern to try and get familiar with these strokes. Simply pick up your simple brush, choose any material you like. Personally, I would say either choose the skin shade or the blend material or any reflected map, like this blend right here. Increase your size. Pick any 3 colors of your choice or multiple colors. Just do any type of sculpt. I'm going to turn the focal shift down, Control N. Reduce the brush size. S is the shortcut key. Paint it like this here. A red color here. And a sky blue one here. And then use the smudge brush to smudge these all 3 together into a swirly shape like this. Now obviously the colors will mix and you will get somewhat like this. You can create logos too. I will show you how to properly use all of them, and you can increase the intensity and reduce the brush size too to create more smooshy stuff like this. You can even see the logo of the smudge brush, what it actually does like that. So this was the purpose of the smudging brush. These will be useful in the next tutorials. In the next video, we will discuss how to use the 3D space inside of ZBrush. Similarly, I needed to practice around with different brushes, like the fiber brush. You just draw out fibers. The snake hook brush or the hook brush. A hook brush just grabs it and moves it out. And with the snake hook brush, you can just draw these out like these and discover all these other brushes up to the bump one. And I will discuss some of these in the next videos and how to create your own alpha maps. So then we can get started with 3D. Thank you for watching the tutorial, and I'll make sure to upload more soon.